Imagine the last time you hugged your father or favorite uncle. Happy thoughts come to mind, right? Now picture waking up to seeing that very person, the man you trust wholeheartedly, splashed across every news channel suspected of not just one monstrous crime, but of many. This is the devastating cognitive dissonance the Rader family felt on February 25, 2005, when their beloved husband and father, Dennis Rader, was arrested as the notorious BTK killer. Welcome to Timeless Mysteries. Please like and subscribe. If the capacity for human darkness intrigues you, you're in the right place, because today we unveil the monstrous reality you've been refusing to believe. Killers really do hide in plain sight. On the surface, Dennis Rader's life gleamed with moral posturing. He was a devoted father, a respected church president, and even a Boy Scout leader. Yet behind the stained glass of suburban piety, he labored on homemade altars of horror. Dr. Catherine Ramsland, a forensic psychologist and author of Confessions of a Serial Killer, documents Dennis Rader's uncanny ability to lock away a viper's appetite for cruelty, only to unleash it on unsuspecting souls who believed they lived among friends. In her interviews with him, Rader referred to a mysterious Factor X, a self-described inner compulsion he claimed drove him to stalk and murder. According to Ramsland, his capacity for outwardly normal behavior was as if he could flip a switch and become someone else entirely, a trait that helped him blend unnoticed into Wichita's quiet neighborhoods. Rader liked to call his victims projects. Cold clinical nicknames such as Project Cookie or Project Dogside. These designations dehumanized his victims, reducing them to tasks on a private list of criminal fantasies. Marine Hedge, a gentle 53-year-old widow living just 6 doors down, became his so-called Project Cookie. Her proximity allowed him to observe her rhythms, to sense her vulnerability. He watched her the way a spider monitors a half-ensnared fly, quietly spinning psychological webs until the perfect moment to strike. Rader took pride in creating elaborate plans. He sometimes referred to them as hits or scenarios, then meticulously recorded each step in writing to relive the crimes later. On April 27, 1985, while the church community believed him engaged in wholesome fellowship, Dennis Rader crafted the alibi of a lifetime. He slipped away unnoticed, slithered into Marine Hedge's home under the cover of darkness, and waited like a serpent coiled in deep grass. When she returned, he didn't simply just murder her. This was his sadistic ritual.
By the time he was in the 8th or 9th grade, he was having sexual dreams and sexual feelings that he knew no other young man was having. He said, by that time, I knew my future. I knew what I was going to be.
He bound her, he gagged her, and he made sure she was unable to move or scream before he began his sick game. He slowly wrapped a cord around her neck, squeezing lightly at first, then releasing, laughing at the worry dripping from her face, repeating this pattern until the amusement in his eyes transformed into rage. Her face turned a new shade of panic the moment he used his full strength, squeezing, red-faced and sweaty, so hard that he didn't even know if he could let go. Yet he did let go, just in time to prolong her suffering, and he frantically brought her back to life, beginning to gloat even before her eyes had fully reopened. He screamed at her, he spat at her, he bragged about how many times he'd done this before, boasting about the rush, even spouting off names of his potential next targets. Marine's eyes likely held a fragile flicker of hope that she could survive this. Rader fed off of that hope, relishing the moment of false reprieve. As Dr. Ramsland later noted in her analysis, he needed to watch their terror.
When he was about 11 or 12 years old, a teacher humiliated him in a classroom. He was very angry about it, and he went around to her house later that day in the evening to peek in her window at her, and he had the rope with him. He tied it around his waist, tied it tight, and as he watched her through the window, he had an orgasm.
He needed to see their recognition that he held all of the power. When he finally grew weary of his sadistic dance, Rader calmly sealed a plastic bag over her head, allowing their eyes to lock so he could devour every last bit of terror she felt. Marine Hedge died, but his cruelty still wasn't spent. He loaded her body into her own car and drove it to a secluded spot near the church. He stripped her naked. There he arranged her in sexually suggestive poses, snapping photo after photo, images that would become keepsakes for his secret stash. Only after he'd taken everything he wanted, her life, her dignity, her last vestige of privacy, he dumped her body in a ditch, staging her in a manner that exposed her even further. He then quietly rejoined his family just in time for the church event to end, making a point to say goodbye to everyone in attendance as though he had never left at all. Rader wasn't content to kill. Each victim suffered more than mere murder. He perfected a psychological and physical form of horror, leaving behind scenes designed to shock both the investigators and the public. His letters to the media signed BTK, a name he coined for himself: bind, torture, kill. And the way he sent taunting packages to police underscored his desire for credit. Why go to such extremes? Murder, detailed documentation, letters to the police and media. If the goal wasn't purely public notoriety, what was it? According to former FBI profiler John Douglas, serial killers like Dennis Rader may superficially crave attention, yet the deeper compulsion could be to confirm their own perceived superiority. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Mary Ellen O'Toole has similarly identified grandiose narcissism in offenders who showcase their crimes, implying they see themselves as above the law. But I believe there's really just one underlying motive here: selfish validation. Rader needed continual proof that his fantasies were more than mere delusions, so he sought out multiple sources of affirmation. His meticulous notes, his private documentations in one hand, and the reactions from law enforcement and the public on the other. It's not that he wanted applause or admiration. Rather, he worried that without outside acknowledgement, his elaborate journals and photographs might fade into the realm of make-believe. People suffering extreme delusions can concoct entire days that never happened. So by sending letters to the police, he effectively asked, "Can you see this too? Am I really doing these things?" If no one responded, it might have unraveled his twisted sense of power entirely. In that scenario, he could have spiraled into deeper paranoia, questioning his own grip on reality or even jeopardizing his own life in the process. Thus, what might look like taunting was possibly another layer of verification that these unspeakable acts truly happened, and that he truly was the master he believed himself to be. By confessing to 10 murders committed between 1974 and 1991, Rader fortified his place among the most chilling serial killers in recorded history. But in 2023, authorities named him as the prime suspect in the 1976 disappearance of 16-year-old Cynthia Kinney and the 1990 murder of 22-year-old Shauna Garber, suggesting his true victim count may exceed his original confessions. If you think the BTK is terrifying, you don't want to miss what's next. Here's a trivia question for you. Which mid-20th century murderer was rumored to practice cannibalism, stole body parts from local cemeteries to fashion grotesque household items, and was ultimately found mentally incompetent, spending his final years in both the Central State Hospital at Waupun and at the Mendota Mental Health Institute before dying there in 1984. Although officially linked to just 2 murders, many suspect his real tally may be much higher. Let's put your best guess in the comments below, and let's see if you're right. As always, stay kind, be vigilant, and always question the truth. I'll see you in the next video.